A mark on a wall, a name on a page, a photograph on glass. This is how humans argue with death. Hello, my name is Quinn Jacobson, and welcome to this video podcast. In this video, I want to talk about art and mortality. Specifically, chapter 4 of this book, Mortals, How the Fear of Death Shaped Human Society, by Rachel and Ross Menzies. They are, I believe, psychologists in Australia. Fascinating writing, fascinating research. I've read the book twice, and I will definitely be using that as a resource in my doctoral studies and these upcoming books that I'm attempting to do. Some of my favorite chapters are Chapter 2, it's called The Promises of Religion. Very interesting information in that. Chapter 4, the one we're going to talk about today, called Immortality Projects and Creative Works. Chapter 7, The Buffer of Self-Esteem. You can see where Ernest Becker and terror management theory, Solomon, Greenberg, and Pazinski come into this, and they mention them all through the book, mostly call out explicitly where they're getting all this information from, or a lot of it, I should say. Chapter 8, that chapter really blew me away. It's called Funerary Practices and What They Tell Us. Mind-blowing stuff there. Chapter 10, Death Dread and Mental Illness. Another area that I am really fascinated by, and I'm sure we'll revisit this, or I'll revisit this a lot in my video and blogs. It's over 400 pages, so there's tons of information, and a 10-minute talk today is not going to even scratch the surface. But anyway, let me get started on this. Remember, you can read this. I'm going to post it as a blog too, or some version of it. You can read about it on my website at studioq.com. Just click on the blog link. Immortality Projects and Creative Works. I wonder where I got that from. I want to talk about art, death anxiety, and something Ernest Becker called immortality projects. In Mortals, How the Fear of Death Shaped Human Society, by Rachel and Ross Menzies, they argue that much of human culture exists to solve one problem. We know we're going to die, and that knowledge is hard to live with. Like so many other thinkers and philosophers and creatives have talked about and expressed over millennia. Chapter 4 of this book looks at the creative work through that lens. Art, they suggest, is a way humans try to leave a durable trace. A mark that says, I was real, I mattered, I didn't vanish unnoticed. From prehistoric cave hands to frescoes, literature, monuments, and even celebrity rituals, creative acts become symbolic bids against erasure. That idea fits closely with Ernest Becker's claim that humans manage death anxiety by building systems that promise symbolic immortality. But the book resists comforting conclusions, and I like that. Most creative immortality projects fail. I would argue they all do. Most works disappear, and again, I would argue they all do. Even when they endure, the authors are careful not to present that endurance as psychologically redemptive. A very good point. The pyramid still stands, but at enormous human cost. Shakespeare still circulates, but even that permanence is fragile. What I find especially compelling is how often mortals show art undermining immortality fantasies rather than fulfilling them. Across literature and myth, immortality is portrayed as empty, grotesque, or tragic. These stories don't reassure us, they warn us. At one point, the authors suggest something subtle but important, that a simpler way of coping with mortality might be to explore death within creative work itself. Not to defeat it, not to outlive it, but to stay with it symbolically. That's where my question begins. When the Menzies say that a, quote, simpler way of coping with mortality might be to explore death within creative work itself, they are contrasting two very different strategies for managing death anxiety. The first strategy, building something to outlast you. This is the classic Immortality project. You try to defeat death symbolically by leaving a permanent object, creating a legacy, securing recognition, or attaching your identity to something you hope will endure. This strategy is outward-facing and future-oriented. Its psychological wager is, if something of me lasts, then I don't entirely disappear. The problem, which the chapter repeatedly emphasizes, is that this strategy is fragile. Most works don't last, cultural values shift, and even when permanence is achieved, the relief is uncertain and often hollow. The second strategy, staying with death symbolically. This is the simpler approach they gesture toward. Instead of trying to outrun death, creative work becomes a place where death is imagined, narrated, symbolized, revisited, and emotionally worked through. In this mode, art is not a promise of immortality. It's a contained encounter with finitude. Think of it less as building a monument and more as building a room where you can enter repeatedly without being overwhelmed. The artwork doesn't deny death or solve it. It allows death to be present without collapsing the psyche. That's what explore death within creative work itself really means. Why they call it simpler. Not easier, simpler. Because psychologically, this approach doesn't depend on permanence, public recognition, cultural validation, or the fantasy of being remembered. It works even if the artwork disappears, which it will. The coping happens in the process, not in the afterlife of the object. Let me read that one more time. The coping happens in the process, not in the afterlife of the object. The Menzies don't actually make that claim. I do. They don't argue that creative engagement reduces death anxiety more effectively, or that it fundamentally reshapes denial, or even that it meaningfully separates artists from non-artists. I do. What they do is something quieter. They gesture toward the possibility, and then they move on. That pause matters to me, because that gesture, left undeveloped, is exactly where my work begins. I'm the one pressing the implication that some forms of art are not immortality projects at all, but practices of exposure, ways of keeping mortality on the table without converting it into legacy, heroism, or reinsurance. So that sentence isn't a conclusion, it's a hinge. Throughout the chapter, artists are treated as examples of a universal human strategy, not as a distinct psychological group. Art is framed as one more immortality project. And that's fair as far as it goes, but it may not go far enough. Some creative practices don't promise permanence, like I just explained. They don't reassure, they don't even console. They sit with loss, decay, impermanence, and failure. They return to mortality again and again without resolving it. So the question isn't whether art is an immortality project. Mortals makes that case convincingly. The question is whether some forms of art function differently, not as denial, but as exposure. Not as escape from death anxiety, but as a way of metabolizing it without turning away. That's the space I'm exploring. Thank you for your time.